Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptid's Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the arse of the subscription button as well. And remember to chokehold that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. And by subscribing you'll be the first to see all of our new spooky creepypasta stories. I would just like to say a very big thank you to all of the authors that I have worked with and all the ones that I will work with in the future. So thank you all, my brothers and sisters. And now let's just take a moment's silence for all the haters. That's enough. If you would like to support the channel and buy me a very much loved coffee, you can send your donations, big or small, to paypal.me/cryptidsroost. And why not hashtag cryptidsroost in your comments. As a new added bonus, be sure to check out the blooper reel at the end of the video. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Ghost of Christmas Never. This awesome story is written by Erutious, a wonderful author over on Reddit. If you would like to read more of his works, a link to his Reddit profile will be below in the description. And you can also find him here on YouTube under the moniker of Dr. Plague. That link will also be listed below, so be sure to check him out. Okay, so this is really weird and I don't know what to do about it. I don't even know if anyone will even read this, but it's all I can do to keep my mind intact. I've been wandering the streets for weeks, unable to re-enter my home. I have never been what you would call a very motivated person. I was a solid C student in high school, a college dropout, and I worked at Kinko's full-time to pay for my shabby one-bedroom apartment and the meagre food in my fridge. I was never hurting, not really. I just didn't really have a direction. My parents bemoaned the way I lived constantly. They tell me that I have so much potential when I was a kid. I had such good grades. My writing was so talented. I had so many opportunities. I excelled in both baseball and track. I've probably still got some of the spelling bee trophies I won throughout elementary school somewhere in my closet as well. The world was my oyster, and it seemed like middle school would be a continuation of my excellence. Then I found World of Warcraft. I know it's a cop-out, but the game kind of took over my life. Suddenly, I didn't care about tests. I didn't care about extracurriculars, and if I still wrote, it was fanfic about the game I loved. This affair started in 6th grade. And my parents kicked themselves for paying for my subscription fees. Suddenly my own priority seemed to be doing my chores so I could keep them paying for my monthly subscription. I would spend hours online, which only worsened as I grew older. I was actually playing World of Warcraft when it happened. I had gotten off work an hour ago and I hit the game as soon as I got home. My guild was raiding and I was settled in for 8 hours of solid gaming. I was off the next day so I could sleep tomorrow away if I wanted. What did I have to get up for anyway? All my friends were online, so sleeping until I finally felt like getting up sounded pretty good to me. When the weird light started emanating behind me, I thought it was my lava lamp at first. I started hearing someone talking. Someone behind me as opposed to over my headset, and I glanced behind me to see a strange wavering portal. It was like looking too far down the road on a hot day, and it seemed to shiver over the dirty floor of my bedroom. There were 2 people standing in it. One of them was a tall man in a suit and top hat, casting his hand at me as though showing me to the other. The other was a child, barely older than 12, looking confused in his pyjamas. My eyes grew wide. The kid was also me.
See what future holds if you stay on this path? Your dreams, your ambitions, all gone as you wallow in perpetual stagnation.
The younger me looked around, seemingly horrified, before begging the man to take him back home.
As you wish,
said the suited man, and suddenly they were gone. I sat there listening to my guildmates asking me if I was still there. What the hell was that? It had ended as quickly as it had begun, and I was left thinking that something otherworldly had just happened. I had seen myself at the age just before I had given up, but I had no memory of what had just happened. No man had ever visited me and taken me on a Dickensian look at my future. It had never happened, and yet I had seen myself standing there, and the feeling of horror of that young man's face had been startling. I tried to get back into the game, but the thought of that little kid looking at me with real horror kept distracting me. A few minutes later, I told them I felt sick and took myself off to bed. I lay there thinking about what I had seen, wondering if it had all been a dream or a delusion or what. The look on that youngster's face had been deeply troubling, and I just couldn't shake it. What had that even been? Why didn't I remember it? I went to sleep thinking of these things, and they followed me into my dreams. The strangeness started the next day. I had woken up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and as I sat down with my bowl of cereal, I was ready to play. I had sort of put the events of the night before out of my mind and decided that it was just something I had dreamt of. I had felt sick last night and dreamed about seeing a ghostly figure. My brain knew otherwise, but I had gotten pretty good at deluding myself after convincing myself that things were fine for so long. It had started with something easily overlooked. I logged in and got started trying to find a group with one of my lower level characters. I wanted to run a specific dungeon, but they seemed to ignore me when I asked to join their group. I thought, well, that was kind of rude, but the longer it went on, the madder I got about it. I raged about it in chat, but it also went uncommented on. I changed characters thinking it was an error, but I was still roundly ignored. After about an hour, I gave up and logged off. I tried playing other games I enjoyed, but no one seemed to see me or comment on anything I said in game. It was like I was invisible. I went down to the corner store to get something to eat, a pack of ramen and a sandwich, and I had to smack the counter a few times before the guy behind it would look at me. He was stocking the cigarettes, but I knew he saw me. I asked him why he didn't acknowledge me sooner, but he just told me to have a nice day and wandered off. After I ate, I just went back to bed and lay there fuming. I wish now that it had only been limited to being overlooked. The next day I had work. I got up at 9, showered, ate breakfast and put my uniform on. I thought about calling in. I was still put out about yesterday, but I decided against it. Maybe a day of work would make me feel better. People would have to notice me if I was at work, right? I grabbed my keys and headed out to the Kinko's. It started to become more noticeable when I got to work. At first, a co-worker wouldn't say hi to me. Then it was the time clock refusing to let me clock in with my thumbprint. I went to Mary, my boss, but she just ignored me. I shouted and pushed things off her desk, and that only seemed to draw her attention. She asked what the hell I was doing, and when I told her I couldn't clock in, she asked who I was. I looked at her, unbelieving. I had worked at this Kinko's for 7 years. Mary is the one who hired me. I told her my name after she started getting rude about it, and she typed it in and just shook her head. Sorry, it looks like you don't work at this location. Are you supposed to start at the Francis Park store today, or... Before I cut her off, I told her that I had worked here for 7 years. I told her that we had interacted almost daily since I started. I had literally been to her house, swam in her pool, gone to high school with her son. She just stared at me blankly and said she had no idea who I was. She suggested that I check with the Francis Park store, but told me I would have to leave. After a little more arguing, she threatened to call the cops if I didn't leave immediately. Thinking back on it, she wasn't even really angry when she threatened to call the police. She spoke to me in the way you might boredly tell someone that it's time they left. She never looked up from her work, simply wanting the momentary nuisance that was me to go away. When I left, she never even acknowledged it. I went home in a rage, not understanding what was going on, but my mind kept returning to that kid and the man in the top hat. Maybe it was the time of year, but the whole thing made me feel very Scrooge-like. Had not Ebenezer Scrooge been shown his future by a ghost? Perhaps I was the future yet to come. I shook my head, trying to get it out of my brain. The whole thing was just too weird. My mood wasn't helped by the reception I received online. People ignored me again, the very thing I had already been mad about. And even worse, some of them asked where I was. They claimed they hadn't seen me in a few days and were starting to get worried. Others claimed they thought I had been online yesterday, but they couldn't be sure. I told them I was here, asking what sort of game they were playing, but they didn't respond. I finally logged out and went to get some takeout. If I couldn't drown my sorrows in online games, I would drown them in cheap Chinese food. When I reached for the door though, there was a moment of vertigo as my hand slipped through the knob. I pulled it away like a kid who's touched a hot stove. But when I reached it again, my hand gripped the knob and I turned it like normal. I looked at it for a few seconds, knowing what I had seen, but not quite believing it. I closed the door behind myself, wondering vacantly if I'd be able to get back in again. As I walked down the road, the garish lights of Christmas twinkled around me. It suddenly hit me that it was December 21st, and I hadn't bought a single thing for my parents. I hadn't the year before that either, but it was weird that they hadn't called to ask if I would be around for Christmas. As I walked down the sidewalk, people avoided me easily, none of them so much as grunting at me to make an excuse or tell me to get the hell out of the way. It was the holidays, where people usually told you to fuck yourself for getting in the way in my town. I was beginning to feel unwanted, if not a little unseen, as I slumped my shoulders and continued on. The trip was ultimately fruitless. I stood in line at the restaurant, but the guy behind me stepped up to order instead. As I approached the counter, the guy at the register took no notice of me and instead began to take his order. I shouted at them, banging on the counter, but they just ignored me. What the hell was going on? I shouted at the others in line, but no one so much as looked at me. Finally, I just turned to leave, reaching out to catch the door as it swung shut. The bar passed right through my hands and I slid through the glass front as I stumbled out onto the street. I ran then, my frantic running attracting no one's attention. I wish I had been able to pass so easily into my apartment, but I never found it. I ran back to my apartment complex, but my apartment was gone. The space was empty, a blank wall that had been a door barely an hour ago, and no matter how much I slammed my hands against it, refused to return to reality. After an hour of just leaning there, hoping for something, I turned and left. I've been on the streets ever since. I don't know how long I've been here. but I see the lights and know that it's that time of year again. I walk the streets alone. No one notices me. No one speaks to me. It's as if I don't even exist. I've been living in the library that I used to go to when I was a kid, reading books and trying to muster the strength to write this. You see, it's like that scene in the movie Ghost. If I concentrate very, very hard, I can turn a page or strike a key on the computer. It gets easier the more I practice, but it takes a toll sometimes. I've been typing my story for quite some time now, hiding it on the librarian's computer so she won't delete it. It's almost ready to post now, and I'm hoping that, unlike my past friends, someone can see my final message. I've wondered long and hard, you see, about what happened to the characters in A Christmas Carol after Scrooge had his change of heart. Did they cease to exist, or did they live in this strange limbo like me? I wonder if what my past self saw was really so terrible. Am I such a nightmare that he felt he must change his future so drastically? Did he return to the past and hurt himself in response to seeing how bad things could be? I don't know. I don't even know why I'm telling any of you this. I suspect it is simply for the purpose of telling you that I existed once, as much as I ever existed. When I am finally allowed to be no more, I want someone to know that I was more or less than the ghost I am today. Enjoy the blooper reel. I don't even know if anyone will even read this, but it's all I can do to keep my bloody dog snoring. I don't even know if anyone will even read this, but it's all I can do to keep my mind intact. I've been wandering the streets for weeks, unable to enter my home. I've been wandering the streets for weeks, unable to re-enter my home. I was a solid C student in high school, a college dropout, and I worked at Kinko's full. I was a solid C student in high school, a college dropout, and I worked at Kinko's full-time to pay for my shabby one-bedroom apartment and the meagre food in my fridge. I would spend hours online, which only would. I would spend hours online, which only worsened as I grew older. No man had ever visited me and taken me on a Dickensian. No man had ever visited me and taken me on a Dickensian look at my future. I lay there thinking about what I had seen, wondering if it had been. I lay there thinking about what I had seen, wondering if it had all been a dream or a delusion or what. What had that even been? Why didn't I remember it? But I had gotten pretty good at deluding myself after convincing myself that things were fine for so long. I tried playing other games I enjoyed. Danny, stop friggin' snoring, bloody dog. I went home in a rage, not understanding what was going on. They claimed they hadn't seen me in a few days, and we were starting to get worried. They claimed they hadn't seen me in a few days, and were starting to get worried. I closed the door behind myself, wondering vacantly if I had been able to get. I closed the door behind myself, wondering vacantly if I'd be able to get back in again. It was the holidays, but people usually told you to fuck off for your... It was the holidays, but people usually told you to fuck yourself for getting in the way in my town. Finally, I just turned to leave, reaching out to catch the door as it swung shut. The bar passed right through my hands, and I slid. The bar passed right through my hands, and I slid through the glass front as I stumbled out onto the street. The space was empty, a blank wall that had been a door barely an hour ago, and no matter how much I slammed my head against it, the space was empty, a blank wall that had been... The space was empty, a blank wall that had been a door barely an hour ago, and no matter how much I slammed my hands against it, refused to return to reality. I don't know how long I've been here, but I see the lights and I know that it's... I don't know how long I've been here, but I see the lights and I know... I don't know how long I've been here, but I see the lights and know that it's that time of year again.